to be a god to get into your dream school. What's going on, guys? My name is Dan, also known as the Brown Republican. This is going to be the first video on my YouTube channel, but this is really just, as the title says, going to be a video about how to get into your dream school. I got into my dream school. I got into Duke University. Yeah! It was the only school I applied to because I applied early decision. I never had to, go past that, never had to apply anywhere else, never had to wait 3 months. I just got in. But I guess the central theme of this video is going to be that you don't have to be a god to get into your dream school. Speaking from experience, I was never the president of any clubs. I didn't have a perfect GPA. I was a long way from valedictorian, actually. No, my GPA was not perfect. I didn't have all straight A's. I was not the captain of my sports team. I didn't win any nationally acclaimed awards. My test scores were not amazing. Well, they were alright. So basically, we're going to split this up into 5 different categories. They're going to be your grades, test scores, extracurriculars, recommendations, and interview. And then we're going to tie that up. And basically what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be doing sort of a parallel where I'm going to tell you what I did and also what you can do in order to get to your dream school. It's not necessarily so formulaic where you have to do step by step, something like that. But these are just some tips from my own experience and from people I know that can help you get into the school of your dreams. So the first thing we want to talk about are grades. And as I said before, I didn't have straight A's. I had B's and almost a C once. But really, when it comes down to grades, here are 2 things. Number 1, grades really have to intermingle, I guess, with how hard your curriculum is. If you're getting, not straight A's and your curriculum is kind of weak, your class choice is weaker, that might be a bad thing. That could be a red flag. But for me, I took the most strenuous course at my school. I took 10 APs out of the 20 classes I actually took throughout my 4 years of high school. I went the really hard route. I had lots of APs, lots of honors courses. It was tough, lots of work. But I didn't have straight A's. I had B's, I had C's. But that's okay, because if you look at the context of my rigor, it was something that you could, understand why. It was a tough schedule. And it's okay if it's not perfect. So don't, feel that you're going to be rejected from Harvard or wherever just because you got a solitary B on that one AP calculus course. It's fine. You're not going to get rejected because of one little blip on your transcript. Focus more on being able to maintain high grades everywhere else. It's okay to have B's. It's okay to have C's. You can also just make it up, somewhere else. We're going to move on to test scores. Test scores are really interesting. For me, I was just sort of naturally gifted that I didn't have to study for the ACT. I got a 34. That was pretty good. My SAT was a 1460, which was, all right. But for the context of Duke, the college I wanted to go to, my 34 ACT actually worked really well. So I don't have much to say about the struggles of test scores, but I do want to say this. If you don't get a good score, try again. Most of the people I know, they got 31s on ACT. They tried 33, 34. Almost always, especially if you have a lot of room to grow, retake it. Take those, those prep books, find a tutor. These are all things that can help you. And the thing about, standardized tests is they need them. The colleges need them to see where you lie on their scale. It gives a national metric for everybody to follow. So for that, it does matter about your SAT scores, ACT scores, but really, it's really easy to do well on those. Just practice time management and being able to, do the stuff you need to do. The next thing we're going to talk about are extracurriculars, and this is probably one of the biggest places that students struggle in. What I want to say is the biggest tip I learned is try to do something outside of school. And you're like, well, yeah, duh, outside of school. But I mean, take the word extracurricular and just take it like a step further. Don't just say, oh yeah, do a club or a sport. And I'm not saying like clubs and sports are bad. I'm not saying math olympiads are a terrible thing. Those are all great things. But if you want to stand out to the admissions committee, admissions people, try to do something truly outside of school. A sport is still sort of run by the school. A club happens in the school. You might do stuff out of class, out of school, but it's still based in the school. Doing orchestra, doing band, doing, any musical theater performance. All that stuff still happens in school. And that's something that, anyone that's sort of interested in can still go into. It's not something that they're going to be like, it takes me to take a step further into what I want to do. So I'll tell you a bit about what I did. I did track, all 4 years, and that's something that sat, on my application as an activity, but that wasn't it. And I was never the captain of that either, so I was not like really that amazing person. I was just an average athlete on the track team. But what I did do is also in those 4 years, I volunteered at a wildlife conservancy up the coast. And that was something that taught me a lot about, how people act, how people pollute and stuff like that, because I actually ascended enough to become a volunteer leader. I would take people out on these, cleanups and stuff like that. So this was something that was not sponsored by the school at all. It had nothing to do with anything within the school, but I went out and I, helped my environment. For example. And another thing I did was I was a congressional intern. You could probably tell by my channel name, I'm really into politics. So over the summer I decided, hey, why don't I, summer before senior year, why don't I try working for a congresswoman and see what that entails? And I did. The last 3 months I just got off now were an internship at a congressional office. I learned a lot about politics. That was something that was a passion of mine. And it wasn't something that was, school-based again. And, I was vice president of a cleanup club because, I do ecological restoration, but that doesn't mean that, that's where you stop. Try to do something outside of school. And you don't need to win like national awards. You don't need to have so much money or do something no one's ever done before. Just try to do something that people don't do normally, or do something just at least out of school. So the next thing we're going to talk about are recommenders, recommendations, stuff like that. This one I feel a lot of students, do well with, especially the ones going to good places, because you're supposed to know your teachers. You should try to talk to your teachers. My recommenders was one, my bio teacher, who I worked with a lot. I taught class lessons sometimes. I held my club meetings in her classroom. I just got to know her really well, and I was a good student. I didn't screw around. So when I try to talk about recommenders, try to just find people that, jive with you, if that makes any sense. Find teachers that you get along with well without forcing yourself to. Don't try to suck up to a teacher. Because if you just suck up to a teacher, the teacher's going to be like, he asks questions, and he's interested in the topic. That doesn't really tell them anything really special about you, except that you, ask questions. Try to really do things with your teacher. Ask them, can you help me with research? Or, I'm doing something off campus, tell me something about it. You just ask more general, more volunteering based, maybe. Just questions that, really entailed outside of the classroom, because, they were going to write about how you are, not just inside the classroom, because, every recommender is going to do that, but also, what type of person are you outside the classroom? When a university is asking, and trying to look at who you are, they want to see what you can do outside of class, are going to contribute to the community around you. So make sure you tell your teachers, talk with teachers about not just in the classroom, but also out. And this is another thing, get out of the classroom, take everything you can, just expand it. The final word of advice comes from interviews. And this was really interesting. My only interview I ever had was my Duke interview, right here. And he was a pretty cool guy, and I understand that some interviewers might not, connect with you that well. My guy didn't really connect with me that well, but I was still able to tell my story. And this is really just a time, not just to brag about what you do, but also to kind of let the interviewer know who you are. You're trying to pitch to him why you want to get in, without bragging and without, begging to him. Just tell him more about you, so he understands you better. So you're not just a piece of paper to him. So you're actually a living human being. So when it comes to an interview, prepare to talk about yourself. Don't prepare to talk about, specific questions like tell me about yourself or what is your biggest accomplishment. Be prepared to just talk about yourself. Spend maybe a day or two just thinking about your life. I know that's probably something you do all the time, but do it anyway. Just think about, whoa, my life actually has a lot of stuff in it. I thought my life was pretty boring. But I think anyone can, if you give enough time, think about all the cool and amazing and sad and bad and glad things that happen throughout your life. It'll be really interesting to the admissions officer or your interviewer. So in conclusion, just to make all those points clear, number one, be yourself, and number two, get outside of the classroom. Being yourself, for example, my essays, I'll talk about that another time because, I was going to put that in this video, but instead it's such a big topic that I have to put it into something else, another video that I might link down in the description. But when it comes to, being yourself, don't be afraid to talk about yourself in a really personal level, with your interviewer or just on your application to show your passion for something. And number two, as I said before, get out of the classroom. This is something that I cannot stress more than I already have so far. Do stuff that the school doesn't let you do normally. Do stuff that your fellow students wouldn't have access to unless they went out and got it on their own. Okay, think of it kind of like, a dog. How a dog just has food poured in its bowl? It has the kibble. That's like all the other students. You don't want to be like that. You don't want to have it so the food for college is readily available. You want to be the wolf that goes out and gets that food. Goes out of campus, goes off wherever in your community and goes and does something that other people won't necessarily do because they're dogs and they just get food. So those are my really big 2 points. If anyone has any questions, please ask me in the comments. And I'll probably make a lot more college admission videos, probably focusing on each of these categories a lot more specifically. But, thank you for joining me. If you haven't subscribed already, feel free to subscribe, leave a like. If you don't want to subscribe, you don't have to. I'm not forcing you to. But as I said again, thank you for watching. These are just a couple tips of how to get into your dream school, and I hope you find them interesting. So I'll see you next time.